The ABC's been told 250 jobs set to go, $41 million hole in their budget. Is that because of the government's indexation freeze on their funding?
Well, thanks, Annalise. And the ABC is very well funded, over $1 billion a year through the current triennium. In fact, funding increasing each year. They received $43 million additionally in the last budget for additional local news gathering and regional news gathering. It's the job of ABC board and management to allocate the ABC's resources within the available funding. They've indicated this process within the ABC, where people who may be interested in coming forward to seek a redundancy are asked to come forward and nominate their names. That's a decision that ABC board and management have taken as part of their work of managing the corporation.
You've written to the Managing Director of the ABC asking for the ABC to freeze their wages in line with other public servants, and have you had a response?
You're right. The government has required that all government employees have a 6-month pay freeze at a time when many Australians have lost their jobs, many other Australians have taken significant income reductions. It's only fair and appropriate that government employees should also be doing their bit. So I have written to the Managing Director of the ABC, David Anderson, asking that the ABC adopt this practice as well. That's a matter which will be taken to the ABC board. What I hope the ABC board will do is decide to take this to a vote of staff members. That's something that needs to be done under the ABC's enterprise agreement if the decision is to proceed. But it would be, I think, a fine gesture of solidarity with other journalists. The media sector is doing it pretty tough at the moment with the pandemic. Revenues well down, extensive redundancies in many media companies. Many other employees of private sector media companies have taken pay cuts. And so I think this would be an appropriate thing for the ABC to do and for ABC employees to vote in favour of. Of course, it's their decision, but it would be a fine gesture of solidarity with other journalists in the media sector, and also consistent with the government-wide policy that government employees should be subject to a pay freeze for 6 months.
Sorry, just to clarify that, have you had the response from David Anderson that he's taking it to the board, or have you had no response from David Anderson?
He's made it clear to me. I have discussed it with him. He's made it clear to me he is taking it to the board, and so now it'll be a matter for the board to decide whether they go forward to put this to a vote of ABC employees. I certainly hope they do that, consistent with the policy that's applied to government employees across the Australian government, and it would be a fine gesture of solidarity with journalists in other media companies where there have been extensive redundancies and many journalists have taken pay cuts because of the difficult conditions in the media sector, with many media companies experiencing very significant revenue reductions. Of course, the ABC has certainty as to its revenues, its funding from government. Many other media businesses don't have that good fortune.
Would it be a gesture of solidarity from the government to provide more funding to the media sector so we have fewer redundancies across the board in commercial and public broadcasting?
Well, we have a media sector which comprises commercial broadcasters and also the national broadcasters, ABC and SBS, and we allocate very substantial funding, over $1 billion a year of taxpayers' money goes to the ABC, so it's a well-funded organisation. Of course, our government has also taken some specific measures to deal with, or to assist media businesses to deal with these very challenging trading conditions. $41 million of relief from the spectrum tax that radio and TV broadcasters would normally be paying for the use of the radio frequency spectrum as part of broadcasting their services. And we've also announced the $50 million public interest news gathering program for regional broadcasters and newspaper businesses. We've sought applications for funding under that $50 million program. Applications have now closed. We're now going through the applications before being in a position to allocate that funding. So we've moved quickly to provide specific support to affected media businesses. The media plays a very important role in keeping citizens informed, and at this time, with so much uncertainty around with the pandemic, Australians have a hunger for news. We're seeing very high ratings but at the same time the commercial circumstances that the media businesses are facing are challenging. That's why our government has stepped in to provide specific targeted support.
The ABC says that their funding's been hit by an extra $3 million spent on covering the bushfires this year. Is there going to be any extra funding towards the ABC on that front, or acknowledgement that that has also been a hit on their bottom line?
Well, certainly the ABC did a very important job during the bushfires over summer, as did commercial media businesses, providing vital information to Australians about the risks they faced from bushfires and what they needed to do. So I certainly commend the ABC and the other media organisations which provided bushfire information. I've repeatedly said to the ABC, if you'd like to put forward a detailed submission indicating the specific additional costs you incurred, the government will consider that in the normal way. As yet, that has not been provided to me.
So if the ABC management says 250 jobs are on the chopping block, where should they go from?
ABC board and management are responsible for the management of the ABC. That's very clear under the Act that regulates the operations of the ABC. The corporation has operational and managerial and financial independence. So those are decisions for ABC board and management. They're not decisions for the Minister of the day.
The ABC has also been pushed by many of your colleagues, including the Deputy Prime Minister, to be moving their headquarters out of city centres in Southbank and Ultimo and getting out into the regions. Would you support them moving their headquarters in Ultimo and Southbank out of the cities?
I'm on the record as favouring a move from Ultimo to Western Sydney. We've seen major commercial media organisations like 7 and 9 move to new purpose-built facilities. 7 did that some years ago, 9's in the course of doing that now. And that can allow a media organisation to configure itself in the most efficient way. But I also think if we look at where the majority of people in our big cities live, the majority of people in Sydney live west of Parramatta. So I think that if we had the ABC relocating to Western Sydney, it would be able to do an even better job of serving all Australians, carrying out its vital role of providing information and entertainment to Australians. So these are matters for ABC board and management. They do have operational and financial independence, but I am on the record as supporting a relocation to Western Sydney.
And just finally, just on your push for an a freeze of their employee wages at the ABC, are you asking for a temporary freeze of 6 months, or would that timeline change?
What I'm asking is that the ABC should act in a manner that's consistent with what's being asked of all Australian government employees, and that is a 6-month pay freeze, recognising that this is a time when many Australians have lost their jobs, many Australians have had to take a pay cut because of the circumstances of their employer, and it's appropriate that Australian government employees should also bear some impact.